ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ओम सदाशिवसमारंभां शंकराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। सर्ववेदान्तसिद्धान्त गोचरं तमगोचरं गोविन्दं परमानन्दं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्। Hari Om, salutations to all. So we have seen in the few verses earlier about Samadhi, and 368 is where we had stopped. And it said, how does one get into Samadhi Avastha? Yogasya Prathamadvaraha Vang Nirodha. 5 points were given there. One is the control of the speech, aparigraha, dropping possessiveness, and hence even some possessions one drops. Nirasha, so not having insistence, expectations. Niriha, future activities, desires. Nitya Ekanta Shilata, and solitude, single pointedness. These 5 are to be developed if one wants to experience the self in the state of samadhi. So please remember, this is the path of nivritti, and this is meant for those who already have seen enough in the world and then they want to realize the self. They will follow the path of withdrawal. If one has lots of desires, one still wants to enjoy the world, go out there, experience it. Nothing wrong in that. When one develops vairagya, then one starts withdrawing to realize the self. When that burning desire to realize the self is there, mumukshutvam, then one will want to do all these. So continuing further in 369, Shankaracharya ji says, Ekanta sthitirindrayo paramane heturdamaschetasaha samrodhe karanam shamena vilayam yayadaham vasana tenanandarasनुभूतिरचला brahmi sada yoginaha tasmat chitta nirodha eva satatam karya prayatnan mune. So he says, Ekanta sthiti, the state of solitude, Ekanta sthiti, Indriya uparamane hetuhu, is the cause for control of the senses. We will come to deeper meaning. First, we will finish the literal meaning. So, living in solitude helps to control the senses. Hetuhu damahat chetasaha. And that will become means to control the mind. So living in solitude helps to control the senses helps to control the mind. Samrodhe karanam shamena vilayam yayadaham vasana. And then when one has control of the mind, then the ego also is destroyed. Then what happens? Tena ananda rasanubhutihi. That person experiences supreme bliss. Achala Brahmi, and that is not the bliss or that's not the pleasure of the senses, sense organs. It is Brahmi Sukha, supreme bliss. Sada Yoginaha, that person revels in that state at all times. Hence, Tasma Chitta Nirodha Eva Satatam. Hence, one must withdraw and restrain the mind. Karyam Prayatnan Munehe. One must do this work with great effort, great enthusiasm, quieten the mind. Now, this is the basic meaning. So, Ekanta Sthitihi Indriya Uparamane Heturdamaha Chetasaha. So, when one lives in solitude, control of the senses one develops. Now, solitude here has two meanings. One is the solitude which one, when one goes away from people, away from sense objects, tries to live with minimum possessions like we saw in the previous words. So the person is physically moving away from the sense objects and the world and the people, etc. And as they say, out of sight, out of mind. The whole world of ours changes. Our pattern of thinking changes when we move away into solitude, away from people, which we see so many times that happens, even when we attend a camp, spiritual camp, away from the family or away from the other family members, when we attend and we are in an exclusively spiritual environment where there is no temptation of sense objects, no distraction. Earlier days, there was no mobile phone, so there was no problem. One would actually get into this ekanta sthiti. Nowadays, there is mobile phone, so with that, one is in touch with everybody. But if one is able to have some discipline there also, and maybe contact just once a day or something, or maybe tell them after 7 days only I will contact you. Whatever, if one is able to apply those things, then one will understand how much single pointedness will come, how much our mind has got dissipated into so many channels of thinking, into desires, into expectations, that there is no vitality, energy left at all. And when we are amidst sense objects, then the brooding over sense objects, enjoyment, and the tendency to want more and more enjoyment, bhoga vritti, all that starts. So one may intellectually know I should withdraw and I should live in solitude and restrain the senses, etc. But as long as I am amidst all the sense pleasures, it is not possible. It is difficult. One may say, no, great kings like Janak Maharaj, Ambarish Rishi, Ambarish Raja, they all were living in the kingdom, but their mind was not affected. So I am also attempting that. Their mind was of a different caliber. They had supreme vairagya. So for seeker here, the general advice given here is that withdraw from the sense objects, control the senses. For that, going into a solitude place helps. When I don't see the objects, when I'm not brooding over it, maybe initially in the first few days that may even happen by habit, the mind will brood over sense pleasures, especially because it has been in a withdrawn state. But the more one experiences this bliss within, because when one turns the attention of the senses, the mind, everything within, then the bliss of that self is so much more than the temporary pleasure that then one doesn't feel like chasing the temporary pleasures. But initial struggle will be there. So why one must withdraw exclusively? Because many people say, why do we have to do? We will have detachment internally, that is enough. No. Ahead also it will come. Why both are important? Internal and external renunciation is important. So now here he says, first ekanta sthiti indriya uparamane. Senses will get controlled the moment we come into a place of solitude. Because the sense inputs get refined. Satsang, instead of listening to some worldly pleasures or seeing or tasting, smelling, touching them, now I'm using the senses for either doing spiritual practices like seeing the form of the Lord, hearing the glory of the Lord, doing Katha Shravan, chanting the name of the Lord, or decorating the puja or the altar of the Lord. That is one part of training the senses, divinizing. Here, when we want to say to get into samadhi, then one is withdrawn from sense objects and one is trying to turn the attention within by holding on to some name or form of the Lord or any such support and actually withdrawing the senses. Where I'm not engaging the senses in anything externally, even if it is divine, I'm withdrawing. No seeing, no hearing, no tasting, no smelling, no touching. Withdrawn. Normal breathing goes on, but the nose is not trying to smell something special. Those things are not happening. So when that state happens, that when I'm sitting quietly trying to turn the attention. So the second meaning of ekanta is to make the mind single pointed. Eka means single, anta, point. To make the mind single pointed. Towards what? Towards the self which is one, eka. So through steady contemplation on the self, the senses will get withdrawn automatically. Because if we tell the senses just withdraw, but we don't give anything for the senses to do or for the mind to hold on to, then again the brooding on the sense pleasures will start and again the mind will become extroverted, senses will crave and they will get into indulgence. So what has to be done? On one hand, withdraw the senses, on the other hand, contemplate on the self. That has to be done in solitude. So ekant has all the three meanings. First meaning of ekant is physically move away from sense objects, people, etc. Second meaning of ekanta is make the mind single pointed. Any support system can be used for it. But if it invokes purity of the mind and surrender of the ego, then that much better support it is. And the third meaning of ekanta is to make the mind steady and single pointed in nididhyasan. Because eka means that self which is one. So ekante sthiti indriya uparamane hetuhu. This state of solitude and single pointedness helps to control the senses. Hetur damas chetasaha. And once the senses are restrained, mind also gets controlled. The mind goes out through the senses. If I don't have restraint of the senses, the control of the mind is not possible. When the control of the mind has to be done, through the senses, the control of the mind will happen. So solitude helps to restrain senses. Senses, when we control, mind will get controlled. Why? Because the mind, which was earlier feeling that happiness is outside, now because one has turned the attention within, one experiences much more joy. So the mind also doesn't want to crave and run out through the senses. So control of the senses will lead to control of the mind. Samrodhe karanam shamena vilayam yayadaham vasana. If the mind becomes controlled, so what is the meaning of control of the mind here? Doesn't mean no thought will come. Conducive thoughts will come towards contemplation of the self. That is what it is. Single pointedness is what that means. Thoughts conducive to realizing the self, to contemplating on the self, those thoughts will come in the mind. The sensual thoughts indulgent thoughts, negative thoughts, those have all withdrawn. They all were gone. And now, because they have gone, there is only contemplation on the self. This contemplation follows two steps: negation of who I am not and assertion of who I am. So, when these two are followed by the mind, this aham vasana also will get destroyed. The feeling that I am the jiva, I am Mr. So and so, that psychological entity that we hold on to, which is a bundle of actually only memories. There is no entity called Mr. So and so in the present moment. So that entity which we hold on to is the bundle of memories of the past. So these memories of the past is what constitutes our ego, the self-descriptive thoughts we have about ourselves with relation to body, mind, intellect, or some achievement, or some people, anything, or sense objects, wealth, fame. It is all connected to the past. Or along with it, there will be some plans for the future that this entity will have. If we remove these and try to explain who am I in the present moment without any association of the past or future, it is not possible to do that. Right from our name onwards, everything is of the past. Just that the body is there right now in the present. And that also is changing every minute. What we are thinking is me is not me. It's a bundle of cells which are going on changing every minute. Just the external appearance appears to be the same. That also changes over a period of time. So this aham vasana is created because of this. Our mind feeding this psychological entity. And this mind is feeding it because then the senses are also feeding the mind. So as we are seeing things, we build our expectations, our desires, our vasanas, and our vasanas and desires also lead us to those types of environments. So both way it works. We are compelled to go to certain places, meet certain type of people, go through certain experiences, which will further prompt us to have similar or some other types of experiences. So external environment, people, objects, etc. influence our mind. Our mind also makes us go outwards. And this mind is on one hand getting inputs from the external world, on the other hand it is feeding the ego. So if solitude leads to control of senses leads to control of mind. Control of mind, because I am thinking steadily only of Brahman, I am negating who I am not, then that aham vasana, the jiva bhav, that also gets destroyed. The feeling that I am a psychological entity who is separate from all the other jivas, who is separate from God, who needs something else in the world to be happy. Those thoughts of psychological differentiation, they go away. Vilayam yayad aham vasana. What will happen then? Will it be a state of blank after that? No. Tena ananda rasanubhuti achala brahmi sada yoginaha. Through that state, when the aham vasana goes down, to the extent our ego keeps going down, to that extent the joy, spontaneous, natural, selfless joy of the being of ours, true nature of ours, one will experience that. And at one point when the ego is dissolved, one gets into samadhi avastha also very quickly, where one experiences this bliss, brahmi ananda rasanubhuti, the bliss of Brahman one experiences. Why? Because even right now it is bliss of Brahman only we are experiencing, but through a limited means of sense pleasure, sense object, desire fulfillment. It's like eating chocolate with a wrapper. The taste is not coming of the wrapper. Actually, taste is coming only of the chocolate. but one feels it is coming from the wrapper. Same way one feels that if I eat pani puri, if I see some movie, if I go to some place, if I visit some person, aha, that place gave happiness, this person gave happiness, that object gave happiness. They by themselves don't have any capability. They are able to give even the temporary pleasure only because the self is functioning through them. So if that is understood very clearly, the why will we want to eat the chocolate with the wrapper? We remove the wrapper, enjoy the chocolate in its pure taste. Same way, this is the process of detachment from the upadhi. So through solitude, withdraw the attention from the senses and the mind, and then the mind will include intellect and then the ego. And what to experience in that quiet state? Brahmanubhuti, Ananda Rasanubhuti. And it is said, Sada Yoginaha, that person who has done this practice continuously gets established in that and eternally experiences that state of absolute bliss. So, what is the conclusion then? Tasmat chitta nirodha eva satatam karyam. One should try and restrain the senses and the mind all the time with great self effort. Prayatnat munehe. Munehe means what? The one who is contemplative, reflective person. One who is spending time more and more in thinking about the Supreme, that person is a Muni. So having withdrawn, one is contemplating on the self, away from the sense objects, away from the thoughts about indulgence, enjoyment, away from boosting the ego, which is what generally one will do. Through the senses, go and enjoy the world outside and form find new types of enjoyment and tickling of the senses. Or one will brood over some sense pleasure or some regret or some anxiety, mental level. Or ego will be continuously fed when we keep thinking about myself. I am Mr. So and so, I am the Jiva, I have to achieve this, I have to go here, I have to do this. Not as a functional thing, as a psychological thing where one feels that till I don't do this, I am not happy. So generally the mind will take away, generally the person is occupied in these three things. Now when we withdraw into solitude, all the three are taken away. The sense indulgence taken away, brooding over sense pleasures taken away, boosting the ego taken away. All three are gone. And they are not gone just as a negative thing. They are gone because one has deep desire to know the self. One has seen the world enough. Like Gurudev said, I chewed the world enough, I spat it out. In that way, when a person has seen enough in the world and then one wants to know the self, one withdraws. That is this. Then that person experiences samadhi and the absolute bliss in samadhi. So now once again, one more verse ahead to explain about samadhi. What is that state and the process? This is one of the verses which is the next verse is based on a very famous mantra from the Kathopanishad. So if anybody wants to know what should be done in meditation, the general word people today use is meditation. Technically, it's supposed to be contemplation. So generally one thinks I should sit quietly and then just not entertain any thought, become blank or become thoughtless. And there is no process to be followed. There is no symbol to be held on to. There is no like a mental idea of God or upasana. None of that. Just be quiet and thoughtless. That is not what Vedanta is telling us. We don't have to do that. There is a specific process of how this ego has to be transcended and how the bliss is experienced. 370. Vacham niyachat manitam niyacha buddha udhiyam yacha cha buddhi sakshini tam chapi purnatmani nirvikalpe vilapya shantim paramam bhajasva. So he says vacham niyacha atmani. See, the word atmani here means the mind. Vacham niyacha atmani. The senses must be withdrawn into the mind. Now, vacham, the speech, is to represent all the 10 senses, because speech is a faculty, is a sense organ of knowledge, and tongue is speech is sense organ of action, and tongue is a sense organ of knowledge. So one, by saying speech, both are indicated, senses of knowledge, senses of action. So 10 senses must be withdrawn. Vacham yachet, vacham niyacha atmani. You withdraw the senses into the mind, meaning, see, by itself the senses don't have any capability to crave or to experience joy or sorrow, or which we should say pleasure or pain. By itself the senses have no such capability. Like eye, the eye cannot desire that I want to see something attractive. The tongue will not desire that, I need to eat good food. Who desires is the mind. If the mind is not backing the senses will not even register what is happening. So many times that happens when we are lost in some thought and then we are walking. Somebody known to us is passing by and waving at us also, but our mind is not there. We are thinking, lost in some thought. So through the senses, even if eye is seeing, we are not recognizing. Because the senses function only when mind backs it up. Otherwise, they will do the job, but no recognition will happen. So senses don't crave. When it is said, withdraw the senses into the mind, meaning externally, definitely we control the senses, but that also means that in the mind there is no craving and brooding, because the mind craves and then through the senses it is expressed. So suppose one says, I need coffee early in the morning. Who says that? The tongue doesn't say, body will not say. The mind which is associated with this body, that mind will say, happiness is coffee in the morning, hot coffee, filter coffee, if it is especially so good. Now that who is saying? Tongue cannot say all that. Tongue is just a or instrument. It doesn't have any capability of desiring or indulgence by itself. It is a mind. So withdraw the senses into the mind, meaning let the 10 senses physically be withdrawn, but mentally also one is not brooding over sense pleasures. New desires are not gurgling. Vacham niyacha atmani. Tam niyacha buddhav. Now withdraw the senses into the mind. Withdraw the mind into the buddhi. So this mind is the coordinator of these 10 senses. Mind is, like Gurudev used to say, the receiving and dispatch clerk in a post office. So the person receives all the mail, sorts it out according to pin code, etc., and then takes it to the postmaster. And as per the instruction of the postmaster, then this receiving and dispatching clerk will divide it to the respective people who will go out and then they will deliver the post. In that same way, 10 senses coordinated by one mind receives all the stimulus. Mind receives all stimulus from the senses. Intellect will guide the mind what has to be done, and then the mind will convey it, and through the sense organs and through the body, the decision is implemented. So now when we say withdraw the senses into the mind, Now, withdraw, one is physically withdraw. Second is we said no desire entertainment for indulgence. Now withdraw the mind into the buddhi. Buddhau dhyam yacha. Tam niyacha buddhau dhyam. Buddhau actually. Withdraw the senses into the mind, withdraw the mind into the buddhi. So withdraw the mind into the buddhi means what? Mind is the seat of emotions also. Now withdraw that into the buddhi where the emotions get sublimated to realizing the goal. So bhakti will be invoked rather than emotional attachment to people, to objects, to situations. Do the invoke bhakti and withdraw. So the mind will go into intellect. Through devotion, then single pointedly one is seeking the self. Remember in Vivek Chudamani, what was the definition of of bhakti in the beginning? Swaswarupa anusandhanam bhaktirityavidhiyate. The intensity of seeking the self, that is called bhakti. Like how we when we love something, so suppose one loves cricket, with what intensity one watches that cricket. Though India may have lost both the matches against New Zealand, they still will watch with so much of intensity and hope that now at least some change will happen. Now India will win. Nobody has to tell that person, come on, concentrate, sit here, look at the TV, nothing. And one fully single pointed, absorbed, one watches that. So, in that same way, when we say withdraw the mind into the senses, withdraw the senses into the mind, withdraw the mind into the intellect. So, the bhavana that the intellect has is for steadily contemplating on the self to know who am I. That intensity of the feeling which is aligned with the buddhi. Now the senses are not troubling me. Craving from the senses has stopped. The mind also has dropped all the other attachments. Now is intensely seeking the self through steady contemplation of the buddhi. So buddhau dhyam yacha. Dhyam yacha, tam niyacha buddhau. Dhyam yacha cha buddhi sakshini. Now buddhi, you withdraw the buddhi into the sakshi of the buddhi. What does that mean? Sakshi of the buddhi is the Atma alone. Every single desire, thought that arises because of the presence of the Atma. Atma is only a uninvolved, unaffected observer. Enlivener, actually, not even observer. It's an enlivener. In its presence, everything happens. It does not do anything. So withdraw the buddhi into the buddhi sakshi. Now, what is the meaning of buddhi sakshi? Meaning, don't have any attitude of I am Mr. So and so. Have the attitude that I am a Sakshi. I am that pure consciousness which enlivens the BMI as an uninvolved, unaffected witness, observer. Bas. No sense of ego, separate. And that witness is same in everything. The witness in me, witness in you, witness in the other beings is one Atma only. Like 100 pots of sun, they will reflect the same sun. So, Buddhi Sakshini, withdraw the intellect into the witness. Here, generally after intellect will come Ahankar, but that's where the change here is. That after Buddhi, one continuously through steady contemplation says, I am that Chaitanya Swarup Atma, which is the witness. I am not this Jiva at all. So through that steady contemplation, one comes to the attitude of a witness. I am a Sakshi, Buddhi Sakshi. Now one says, okay, that much done. That I have sat down in contemplation. Now I am not engaging in the world outside through the senses. nor is there craving for the senses to indulge. So that is senses getting into the mind. Then with the bhavana that I really want to know the self, with that deep tivra mumukshutvam, and with the bhakti towards the self, now this person tries to withdraw into the buddhi by contemplating on the self. Now when contemplating on the self, one is rejecting who I am not. So ahankar one is not allowing to rise, and then one is just a sakshi. Any thought which comes, if steady contemplative thought is there, I am a witness. If the mind has got distracted also, I am a witness. Again and again one brings back the mind to the witness attitude. And remember, who is the witness? Atma alone is the witness. Now that Atma, who is the witness, as of now I have withdrawn my attention to that, saying I am that witness consciousness. I am not the jiva, I am not the intellect, I am not the mind, I am not the senses, I am not the world outside. At least now it should be that this is the final. No, one more step. Tam chapi purnatmani nirvikalpe vilapya shantim paramam bhajasva. Now that also the bhav of a sakshi merge in that which is beyond sakshi, which is the true self. The sakshi is at the buddhi level. When we say buddhi must merge into the buddhi sakshini, what we are saying is the buddhi which reflects it's a pure buddhi, sukshma buddhi, shuddha buddhi, agra buddhi, that has the capability to reflect consciousness, as well as it has the capability of having the bhav that I am a witness and unaffected by anything else. With that one attitude that I am a sakshi, an uninvolved, unaffected observer, I give up all my other identities. I am not a son, I am not a father, I am not a friend, I am nobody for that moment. In that state of contemplation is what we are talking. So when one has withdrawn from all such identities, I am only sakshi, holding on to one identity, I am a sakshi, I am a sakshi, I am a sakshi. Now this sakshi bhav will remain as long as there is something to witness. So if there is a perception through the senses, or if there is some emotion arising, or some thoughts, some desires, some egoistic ideas, then I am a witness, I am not these. That attitude one takes to not encourage this and to strengthen the bhav, I am a sakshi. When one has with supreme effort and great vairagya dropped all these thoughts, there is nothing to witness. Then the witness attitude also dissolves. Like one is suppose one gives an example that I am a father only as long as I am relating to my son. If that relation to my son ends, then I am not a father anymore. Same way, I am a witness as long as there is something to witness. Meaning duality is there. But if the vairagya of this person is so high, then the seeker, what one will do? I am a sakshi, I am a sakshi, I am a sakshi. When one is abiding in that bhav, ego is not being fed. And this person, slowly, all the thoughts, they will just drop. There is nothing to witness. Why? Because Atma alone exists. Everything is coming and going in the presence of Atma. One whose focus is turned towards the Atma, now these thoughts, because I am not encouraging them, they will anyway die. See, the best part of a thought is we have to do nothing to it. It will just die on its own. Momentary it is. Actually, it is momentary. If I do nothing about that thought, it will just die. But our problem is we continuously renew our thought process. Now, if I continuously renew the thought process, then it will be strong entity, the ego, or even the witnesshood. It's a different matter that I cannot remain as a witness when there are so many thoughts and psychological desires and expectations. Then the mind gets extrovert. But when I have have the vairagya, I have withdrawn systematically senses into the mind into the intellect into the buddhi sakshi through continuous contemplation. Now that buddhi sakshi, when there is nothing to see, meaning the withdrawal has become so complete, then purna atmani nirvikalpe. Nirvikalpa means no thought, but not a thoughtless state. It is purna atmani. It is a state of fulfillment. Vilapya. Now you merge it in that. Meaning when there is nothing to witness, the witness attitude also dissolves. Then what remains? Shantim paramam bhajasva. Only supreme bliss remains. No experiencer of that bliss, like how we generally feel, I am Mr. So and so who ate a gulab jamun, now I feel so happy. That I, Mr. So and so, is an entity which exists, which is deriving some pleasure out of gulab jamun. In this, I, Mr. So and so, is not experiencing Brahmananda or supreme peace. That I, Mr. So and so, dissolves to realize that, oh, there is only one truth. And I am that all the time. I was never the role. It was just a role I played. I was never that. I am always that pure consciousness. So that one will experience here. Vilapya Shantim Paramam Bhajasva. The person is not going into blank state. One is experiencing supreme bliss of the Samadhi Avastha. Because now the withdrawal is full. Senses, mind, intellect, Sakshi. All the four. Withdrawn from all the four. Withdrawn and let go of the identification that I am this. One drops it. Then what happens? That is the state of realization. Samadhi Avastha. So Vilapya Shantim Paramam Bhajasva. Now this is the process. Now which is the mantra of the Upanishad from where this idea has come? So the Kena Upanishad says, Yachedvang Manasi Pragnyaha. The senses and the mind must be dissolved in the buddhi. Yachedvang Manasi Pragnya. Tad Yached Jnana Atmani. That you withdraw in the steady sense of contemplation. Jnana Atmani. The bhav that I am a contemplator, I am a meditator. In that you dissolve all the senses, the mind, the cravings of these. Jnanatmani mahatini achet. This Jnanatmani, this is the bhav that I am a seeker. That what should you do? Surrender it in the total mind and intellect. Jnanatmani mahatini achet. Meaning to recognize that I am not a jiva, but I am that Ishvara, that Hiranyagarbha, who is all the minds put together. And Vedanta is saying you are that consciousness that enlivens that Hiranyagarbha or the total mind also. So drop this identification with one that I am this small entity, Mr. So and so, or I am a witness of Mr. So and so. No, as the witness, it is all pervasive. And so one surrenders that attitude of small I into the big I. Jnanatmani mahatini yachet, tad yachet shantam atmani. And when one drops this false identification, experiences the total, that is the supreme bliss. That state also one withdraws from finally. I am not even the Hiranyagarbha, I am that unaffected, pure consciousness who has never become anything else. That avastha is the state of samadhi, where one goes beyond Hiranyagarbha also, Ishvara also realizes Brahman. What is the realization? This Atma is that Brahman. The self in me is the universal consciousness. That is the experience of this person. And so here it is that very beautiful mantra, as to what should be done in our contemplation, how to withdraw the attention step by step, and what does it mean. It is not just denying the senses or denying the mind. It is not a suppression. It is sublimation at every step. The senses will sublimate their cravings to the mind. Mind will sublimate its emotional attachment to the buddhi. Buddhi will sublimate all its roles, desires, etc. to the witness attitude. Then the witness attitude also finally goes up. Only Atma remains, your consciousness. Like how in the sleep, when we hold on to one thought that I am wanting to sleep, I want nothing else. Whatever work is there, I will take care tomorrow. I just need sleep. Now that one thought, I need sleep, will help to eradicate all the other thoughts. And that state, that one thought, invoking sleep, when one gets into the state of sleep, that thought also gone. Same way, I am a Sakshi, I am a Sakshi, I am a Sakshi, I am not this BMI. Then that I am a Sakshi also will go. Where in that state when one thinks I am Brahman alone. So on one hand, I am not BMI, on one hand, I am Brahman. This one goes on doing and have the attitude of witness towards this contemplation. Even if the mind wanders, bring it back, again become a witness. This process, if one continues, then that witness attitude also will go. Then Samadhi Avastha one experiences. So now this is what it is about Samadhi. Now what happens next to this person? See in this 371 commentary of Gurudev. So the word here given is, oh, we have to do 370, not sorry, 370, yes. We did just now 370. Paramam Bhajasva, Vilapya Shantim Paramam Bhajasva. So now what is the next one? 371. There is no tune in this. At least the first line, I think. Deha pranendriya mano buddhi adibhirupadibhihi yayairvrittehe samayogaha tattad bhavosya yoginaha. So Deha is the body, Prana, the vital energy, Indriya, the senses, Mana, mind, Buddhi, intellect, Adibhihi, Upadibhihi. By all these Upadhis, Yayair Vrittehe Samayogaha. Sorry, Yayair Vrittehe. Whichever thought with which one gets identified, Samayogaha. Tattad bhavo asya yogina. That bhav that yogi will take, the mind of the yogi will take. Meaning, the word yoga here, that's what Gurudeva said in the commentary, that in the second paragraph he says, the word yogi here is used in a peculiar sense. Ordinarily, yogi means one who is identifying with the higher. Here, Shankara uses it in its etymological meaning. Yoga means to join, to get yoked with. Yogi means one who is yoked. So when we yoke ourselves to our physical passions or the emotional agitation or the intellectual perturbances, we at least temporarily become that only. This is what it is. Whatever is our level of identification, we will become that. Simple law in Vedanta. What we identify with, we become one with that. So Gurudeva has given the example here. He says, when we identify with the anger in our minds, we come to behave in rapport with that anger. We become anger. The mind takes the form of that. Complete identification with that will happen. So we say, I am angry. The fact is, anger came in the mind and it was there for some reason. Valid or invalid, that's a different matter. Why did one become angry? But the bhav here is that whatever the mind of a person identifies with, it will become that. So generally speaking, it is that we identify with this kind of emotions or some sense objects, some sense pleasure, and the mind takes the form of that qualities, it absorbs of that. But a yogi, what the yogi will do? The yogi will learn to withdraw from all these step by step. Because one knows that one has become what one identifies with, one will become that. So one will withdraw from all these deha, prana, indriya, mana, buddhi, and associate with the self, that I am only pure consciousness. So the meaning of this verse here is to make us understand that our mind has that capability, especially the mind which becomes single pointed, whatever it will hold on to, it will manifest also. So one has to be very careful of this mind as we develop more and more careful. So the mind will take any form with which it is associated. The stronger the identification, stronger will be the transformation. That mind will as though become one with that. So identified with the body, the mind as though has become one with it, saying, I am this only. And whatever is happening to it is happening to me. So deha. Then prana, identifying with the condition of the prana. So identifying with the condition of the body, one says, I am tall, happy, sorry, tall, dark, young, old, man, woman. That is condition of the body. But this yogi, and for that matter, any seeker also, when one identifies with one aspect, one will become that. One will feel, I am this only. Hunger, thirst, yawning, laughing, sneezing, these are all many, many more, vomiting. All these are prana dharma. Now, identifying with the prana dharma, one feels I am going through all these. Same way, sense organs, they go through so many things where they are perceiving backed by the mind. But the condition of the senses, one feels I am this. So if there is a craving in the mind and the tongue then wants to eat something fried, now one say, I want to eat fried. So this I has got associated with all these different things, with the senses, with the body, with the mind, with the prana. So with the emotions that arise, with the thoughts that arise in the mind and intellect, one identifies. Whatever I identify with, that bhav I will take. So what should a yogi do? Disidentify with all these and identify only with the Atma, the self. Why should I do that? Because any identification with these, they are perishable by themselves. But they don't just perish, they leave a seed and then they perish. Like the body just doesn't fall down and just doesn't die and decay. No. While we are living in the body, now we have identified ourselves as I am this. Now with that body, I have done so many actions. Now all those actions, they will give results. The results will further create new vasana. So these will not by themselves get destroyed. They will create further seeds for further action, further body, further birth. One was understood that, this is dangerous. How long will I keep going round and round in cycle of birth and death? And it's all happening because I have allowed the mind to identify with it completely. If I withdraw my identification, I will be free. So the yogi understands this very well. See, that's why as one goes deeper into Vedanta and then single pointedness increases, one should be very alert as to where the identification of the mind is going now. Otherwise, it will go, it's like a power, which is tremendous power in the buddhi, in the mind of single pointedness. Now I can achieve great things with it, I can achieve realization. Or I can, with single pointedness, brood over sense pleasures, brood over cunning ways of success. All those also I can do. It's the power of buddhi only. Where do I identify? That is that's the attitude of a seeker. Now the last verse in this section here. Tannivritya mune samyak sarvo paramanam sukham sandrishyate sadananda rasanubhava viplavaha. So he says here that when this identification is completely removed, tan nivritya mune samyak, samyak means completely. So having understood that wherever I identify that identification, I become one with that. So I have to withdraw because I am not that. So tan nivritya mune samyak. When the Muni has learned to step by step withdraw, what we saw earlier, sarvo paramanam sukham. Tan nivritya mune samyak sarva uparamanam sukham. When that person is able to detach easily, withdraw easily, and have experience happiness in that withdrawal. Now, when will that happen? Only when it is not a suppression, only when it is done out of joy, when it is done out of maturity and dispassion also, that there is nothing there. There is no pain involved. Sarvoparamanam sukham. Full withdrawal is giving happiness only. How one feels, suppose one has gone outside in the hot sun and his humidity is high, is sultry, sweating, hot winds are blowing, eyes are burning. Then when one comes from outside into the house, so much peace, so much of coolness, quietude. Why? Because I came away from the sun, withdrew, came into the house. There's so much of bliss. In that samsara, what we saw earlier, no, the Vivek Chudamani disciple is asking that samsara davagni davagni taptam, I am burning in the forest fire of samsara. This is a samsara. No? 371 verse said, identification with it, I become that. That is called samsara. Now I withdrawn from all that. There is so much of bliss. Sarvoparanam sukham. So this withdrawal is not causing frustration, not causing suppression, not causing more desires, not causing dullness and escapism, none of that. One is blissfully withdrawn. Like how we withdraw from childhood toys. We grow up. Same way, sarvoparamanam sukham. And then what will happen? It will be just a state of dull and withdrawn state? No. Sandrishyate sadananda. One gets into absolute bliss. Sadananda rasa anubhava viplavaha. And there is a complete reveling in that bliss. So when the withdrawal becomes complete, then there is the complete joy of this withdrawal. This is the bliss of Brahman only, not the bliss of the mind. It's the bliss of Brahman. So now this was about Samadhi Avastha. Now how to get into Samadhi, that also we saw. So what is Samadhi Avastha? How to get into Samadhi, that we saw. What are the factors that will make the experience of Samadhi possible? Now next section we'll start, which is of how to make it more easy. That we will take up tomorrow. Any questions for today?
Swamiji, during the day, what should the sadhaka be like? Because here we are talking about solitude.
Remember
So,
the name of the Lord and do the duty selflessly. That we have discussed earlier, that through the day, that is what has to be done. To live in sense control, to do the work with seva bhav, do the sadhana in the daytime for some time, where we remember the Lord, and that remembrance of the Lord continues through the day. So the bhav is I am serving Bhagwan only, or the I am a witness consciousness. Either of the two attitudes one can take.
okay, thank you, Hari Om Swamiji.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Hari Om.